And now it's time for another Dice Tower review with Mike Vincent.
So here we have Butterbur of the Lore Sphere. He has 2 costs, 1 willpower, 0 attack, 1 defense, and 3 hit points. He is from Bree, and his text reads, if each hero you control has the Hobbit trait, damage from undefended attacks against you may be assigned to Butterbur. Yeah, I like this mechanic. There's a few other allies from other expansions that do something similar. I believe Dory from the Dwarves. Yeah, so certainly could come in handy. 2 cost isn't too bad. He has 3 hit points and 1 defense, which means you could use him for blocking. And it's nice just to have an ally like this as a backup in case you are forced to engage with an enemy that can do a lot of damage. If your heroes are busy or doing something else, then he's a nice fallback if you need to be able to take an attack on somebody. So for 2 cost, I would say Butterbur could certainly come in handy in a Hobbit deck. Okay, now taking a look at the attachments. The first one we have is a spirit attachment. It's the Hobbit Pipe. Very nice to see that it has no cost. It is an item and it is a pipe. It says attached to a Hobbit, limit 1 per character, and response, after your threat is reduced by an event card effect, exhaust Hobbit Pipe to draw a card. Interesting. So there are a few cards, obviously, that would reduce your threat, and perhaps if you're building a deck around threat reduction, this could be handy. The problem is, perhaps, is if you are playing a Hobbit deck, you would have to probably use Fatty Bulger, who I'm less impressed with, to make this item work, as most of the threat-reducing cards are Spirit. I mean, it's free, which is good. So I don't know, I'll have to play with this card and see if it comes in handy. I would think maybe using Pippin and having his card draw ability would be more useful. But you know, card draw is useful, and if you're playing a Spirit deck and maybe you haven't included Pippin in your deck, then maybe you can find a use for the Hobbit Pipe. So here we see the Hobbit Cloak. This is a leadership attachment. It has 1 cost, it is an item, and says attached to a Hobbit hero, limit 1 per hero. Attached hero gets +2 defense while defending against an attack made by an enemy with an engagement cost higher than your threat. So once again, we see this theme where hobbits seem to very much focus on engaging enemies with a higher threat, but this is very good. For 1 cost, getting +2 defense seems really good. If you're going to have Sam Gamgee, then having a defense of 4 with some hit points, especially if you have Build a Pony, he starts to become a very powerful defender. So I could certainly see including a few of these in a Hobbit deck, and for 1 cost, that seems pretty reasonable. Yes, it's restrictive in that you have to engage an enemy with a higher engagement cost, but it seems like if you're playing a Hobbit deck, that's the whole purpose of the deck in the first place, and so you're probably going to have built a deck around keeping your threat low, and you'll probably only engage enemies with higher engagement costs. So, yeah, this looks good. Hobbit Cloak. Alright, so we have a new weapon attachment, the Dagger of Western. Not surprisingly, this is a tactics attachment. It has a cost of 1. I'm liking that. Artifact, item, and weapon. And it says attached to a hero, it's restricted. Attached hero gets +1 attack and +2 attack instead if attacking an enemy with an engaging cost higher than your threat. So this seems like a clear attachment to get on Merry, as he is already a pretty powerful attacker. Again, if your whole Hobbit deck is based around engaging enemies with a higher threat, then potentially if you have Frodo, he would an attack of 4. And then if you're attacking an enemy with a higher engagement, he would an attack of 6. So Merry is just looking better and better as I get a look at all of these other cards. Very happy with the Dagger of Western. And 1 cost is very reasonable. So excellent attachment here. And the last attachment we're going to take a look at is the Elf Stone. It is unique. It is a lore attachment, and it has 1 cost. This is also an artifact and an item, and it says attached to the active location. Attached location gets +1 quest point, meaning you're going to need 1 extra willpower to quest through. Response, after attached location leaves play as an explored location, the first player puts 1 ally into play from his hand. So I could see in the right deck, this could be pretty effective. There are certainly, throughout the different spheres, lots of allies who can be quite expensive. For lore, someone like Gildor and Glorian comes to mind. And so, yeah, for one cost, if you've centered your deck around having lots of high-cost allies in your hand, then being able to play them for free, as long as you are exploring locations, could certainly come in handy. Yeah, Elfstone, wow, that could be really good, and I'm excited to experiment with that card. All right, now looking at the event cards. Here we have Frodo's Intuition. It has 2 costs, and it's part of the Fellowship Sphere. It reads, action. Each hero you control gets +1 willpower until the end of the round. Draw 1 card for each Hobbit hero you control. Wow, this card looks very good. Considering you're probably going to have this in a Hobbit deck. Each hero getting +1 willpower until the end of the round is handy, especially if you're going to have Frodo. There you go, there's +4 willpower. And draw 1 card for each Hobbit, meaning again, if you have Frodo, you can pick up 4 cards. Wow, so if you are using this card and you have Pippin, card draw is certainly not going to be an issue for you, and you're not going to have to include any cards in your deck other than those ones for drawing cards. So this card, very powerful. Now keep in mind, because it is a Fellowship sphere, you can only use this in the Black Riders expansion, and it wouldn't work with previous expansions and adventure packs, but Frodo's Intuition, a great card. So the next event is a lore event. It has a cost of 3, and it's called Take No Notice. We see a picture of a Nazgul there. Lower the cost to play Take No Notice by 1 for each Hobbit or Ranger hero you control. So again, if you're playing a Hobbit deck, that is going to be free. Action, add 5 to each enemy's engagement cost until the end of the round. So, wow, this would be an excellent card if you're playing a Hobbit deck, given that it would be free to play if you're controlling all 3 Hobbit heroes. And again, it seems like the whole theme and all the synergies for the Hobbits seems to revolve around having a higher engagement cost of the enemies you're fighting. So adding 5 to each enemy's engagement cost to the end of the round, again, just plays into that mechanic. So yeah, if you're playing a Hobbit deck, I would say this is a no-brainer. All right, so almost done here. This event is the Smoke Rings. It has a cost of 2, and it is a spirit event. It reads, action, reduce your threat by 1 for each pipe you control. Each hero with a pipe attachment gets +1 willpower until the end of the phase. So we only have 1 pipe so far, the Hobbit Pipe. Perhaps more pipes will be released in future Saga expansions. It seems like the Spirit sphere in this expansion maybe got the short end of the stick. It seems like a lot of the Spirit cards aren't as good as the Tactics, Leadership, or Lore cards. Reducing your threat by 1 is okay. Each hero with a pipe attachment gets +1 willpower to the end of the phase. Yeah, it's okay. I don't know if I would be dying to include this in my deck. Again, as we mentioned, if you're going to be playing Hobbits, you're going to have Fatty Bulger in your deck to make this one work, and I wasn't too impressed with him. For 2 costs, I don't know if I would play this card, to be honest. I'll have to play with it and see how it works out. All right, and the last event card for the Black Riders expansion is Halfling Determination. This is a tactics event. It has a cost of 1 and reads, action, choose a Hobbit character. That character gets +2 willpower, +2 attack, and +2 defense until the end of the phase. Yeah, not an amazing card, not a bad card. Again, if you're playing a Hobbit deck, a cost of 1 is reasonable enough. And there are certainly occasions, whether you're questing, whether you're attacking, or whether you're defending, where getting a little boost like that can make a big difference. Whether it's killing an enemy, preventing one of your heroes from dying, or questing through a nasty active location or portion of the quest. So yeah, Halfling Determination, solid card. Okay, so there you have my initial thoughts on the player cards for the Black Riders. Please do keep in mind this is only my first gut reactions to these cards. I haven't had a time to play with them yet. This was not an official review, but I thought for those of you who were keen to maybe take a look and see what this expansion looked like, or if you're considering picking it up, that you might want to just see what the different cards are and get a quick assessment of whether they're any good. Clearly the theme for the Black Riders is Hobbits, so if you're really into Hobbits, if that's a type of deck that excites you, then I would definitely recommend the Black Riders. Clearly if you're interested in the events of the books, this would also be a good one to pick up. However, if you don't like hobbits or the idea of playing a hobbit deck doesn't interest you, it might be hard to recommend this expansion, as the entire thing, almost every player card, does revolve around hobbit decks. Now, you might just ignore the player cards, make your own deck, or keep, a Rohan deck or a Gondor deck or a Dwarf deck, and just play through the events of the first half of the Fellowship of the Ring. That would make sense. But certainly hobbits is the key word for this expansion. So there you have it. That is the Black Riders expansion, my initial impressions. I will continue to work through chronologically the rest of the adventure packs and expansions to give you a review to see if those are expansions you might want to pick up. So thank you very much for watching. Have a great week.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.